Good evening. I'm delighted to see you all and am grateful that you have joined us on this Friday afternoon. I want to say first that this event is being recorded and will be made available on the Center for Medical Humanities website in the near future. My name is Jim Lee and I'm the center's director. I'm delighted to welcome you to our first Works in Progress presentation for winter quarter. The Works in Progress series provides faculty and students from around campus the opportunity to showcase their research projects that engage with the intersection of medicine, arts, and the humanities. Before I turn this over to Professor Lei, I want to invite you to join us for our next winter quarter event. On February 10th at 5 p.m., we will continue our Mental Health in a Time of Pandemic series featuring Professor Lamar Jarrell Bruce, who will deliver a presentation titled Black Nonsense, or Black Radical Utterances in the Idiom of Madness. I hope you consider joining us for this event. And please stay tuned for announcements for some very exciting activities for the remainder of winter quarter and into the spring that CMH is planning. And I'm putting the link to our next event in the chat. Our presenter today is Daphne Lei, who is a professor of drama here at UCI. Professor Lei is internationally recognized for her scholarship on Chinese opera, Asian American theater, intercultural, diasporic, and transnational and trans-Pacific performance. Her intellectual interest is the context zone, where conflicts occur and solutions are sought, where hybridity is nurtured and resisted, where borders are crossed and borderlands formed, where identity is challenged and performed. Her research focuses on intercultural exchanges across the Pacific, especially interactions between Asians and Asian Americans and negotiations between Asian and non-Asian cultures. She is the author of 3 books: On Crossing the Borders, Performing Chinese and Gendered Transnationalism, published in 2019, Alternative Chinese Opera in the Age of Globalization, Performing Zero, published in 2011, Operatic China, Staging Chinese Identity Across the Pacific, published in, I can't find the year. Was it 2002, Daphne?
2006.
2006, sorry about that. And then she is co-editor of the Methuen Drama Handbook of Interculturalism and Performance, edited with Charlotte MacGyver, published in 2020. Professor Lee is the founding director of Multicultural Spring, a program that promotes multicultural performance since 2007. And Theater Walks, a theater group that cultivates Asian American talent and promotes diversity. More recently, Professor Lei has been engaged in questions of ill and disabled embodiment and exploring the various dimensions of intersectional identity. And it is in this interest that we get to hear about what she has learned through this work in progress, Final Moment, a research performance about COVID-19. Thank you, Professor Lei, and to her students.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Let me first share my screen. Sorry about that. We'll start with some photos first. This is a photo, this is a protest at the Congress in Taiwan against the COVID vaccine policy because there were not enough vaccines and people were dying. So this is when we think about COVID vaccine and politics, they are completely connected. The next picture is after the 76 lockdown in Wuhan. And after the lockdown was lifted, and there was a huge exodus. And this is, and this is when the US has reached this milestone. The death toll has surpassed the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. And during the COVID time, we know that a lot of rituals have to be interrupted or totally abandoned, and religions have to find different ways of communicating with people. So this is a COVID goddess in India. So this is another way when we think about how rituals will be continued during the time. And this is just very recent. We know that after 2 years, everyone is exhausted. So this is kind of like another COVID Christmas or another COVID non-Christmas, because now we are right in the peak of another wave. So this is just some pictures to kind of get you into the zone of COVID. And it's not like we're actually out of the zone, but I just want to start with a few photos. So like everyone here today and like everyone else in the world, my life has been impacted by COVID-19 the past 2 years. I heard about this mysterious pneumonia in China in December 2019 from Chinese media. And my family in Taiwan, they had experienced the 2003 SARS. And so a lot of people from the other side of the Pacific was really alarmed early on. But it was not until January 9th that WHO announced the Wuhan coronavirus in the world. And then it was January 21st, the first case was discovered in the US. And we all know that what happened afterwards. And again, like everyone else, I have been obsessed with what's going on around the world, what we have lost and gained, what we have learned and unlearned. Besides dealing with my own anxiety and taking care of my family and students, besides feeling totally overwhelmed, but also feeling very, very privileged, I read and listened to many COVID stories. I'm sure you did that too. I've been fascinated with the idea of the final moments, but also feel heartbroken about all these stories about final moments. Everything's happening so fast. There's no time to say goodbye. The sense of devastation, anger, frustration, just everything there. And I remembered a long time ago, a nurse told me that a person's hearing is the last thing to go. And so I was really fascinated by this idea of hearing and listening at the final moments. Of course, there was no way for me personally to verify whether that was true or not. But my initial idea for this project is really concentrated on the idea of hearing and listening. So that was a very naive idea. I was going to connect the COVID patients with their family members outside of the ICUs through iPads or similar kind of equipment. But the idea is for UCI students, possibly music students, to provide a soundtrack of the music this person loves, recorded voices of the loved ones, memories or anything they want to tell him. And the whole idea is so the inside of the patient and then the outside could be connected through sound. And then the sound will be playing during the final moments because the patient, family members cannot go in. And then will continue playing even when the patient is quote unquote pronounced dead, because the idea that the sound will accompany this person in this lonely journey, even after when we believe that this person is dead. So at this moment, right now, so I wanna thank my colleague and friend Keiya Kagi, who's a professor of music. He was listening to my crazy idea and kind of convinced that maybe we could engage music students to do this. So I started with my research on the medical side. I want to first thank my primary doctor, actually, Dr. Emily Chow, who connected me with the UCI internal medicine residence program. And also Dr. Alpesh Amin, who also helped me to reach out to the resident doctors. And finally, Dr. Karen Shu Freeman, who first connected me with some of the resident fellows, but then she volunteered to be interviewed. And then she has many good stories. there are just so many, many good stories. When I talk to a doctor, they always just say, there are so many stories I can tell you. So among the fellows I interviewed, I really want to thank Neha Charasia. She gave me really, really lengthy interviews and also provided me a lot of information. And she really helped me visualize what it is like to be in there. And here I just want to show this slide. I just want to say these are the special thanks for all these people so far. So after I started talking to the doctors, I quickly abandoned my original idea about really connecting that way, because there was just so much difficulties. I don't think the doctors when they are trying to save the patients could help me really do this. And so instead, I started to think more philosophically about the questions about final moments. So what is on your mind at the final moments? Can you see, feel, or hear? Who's there with you? But most importantly, how do you know this moment is final? How does anyone know that this is a final moment, that you're with someone, or when you're doing something, the last time you're doing something, or being somewhere? It's in a sense that isn't every moment a final moment. So these are kind of the philosophical questions I'm trying to explore. So then I want to approach the concept of final moments from different angles, and I really want to include stories from diverse cultures. So my artistic vision shifted from this kind of listening focus to a more like a multimedia kind of performance, which contains short monologues and vignettes, short scenes. Some of the scenes and monologues are based on my research with the doctor, interviews with the doctors, and some of them are based on news stories and stories we hear from we see in media. Some are imaginations. The performance will include soundscapes, videos, projections, poetry, music, dance, and puppetry. And the structure will be episodic. So for instance, just give you a sense of the drama part. I have this character named Clara, who's a composite character of a few resident fellows that I interviewed. Clara is young, just out of med school. She's very passionate about her job. She's working 12 hours a day, plus, spending more time talking to the family members of the patients. And she's feeling overwhelmed. She's exhausted and frustrated. She's on the front line fighting the war that the med school has not prepared her for. And also from the very beginning, she actually didn't have any weapons to fight the war. So I really admire all these, young doctors. They're just really, really passionate and devoted. And at the very beginning, they really didn't know much about it, but they were there. And also, for instance, I have this different character named Alex, who's a young college student. We all know him. And he has to evacuate from the dorm and saying goodbye to his girlfriend, and later losing his grandmother to COVID. And a doctor told me that usually when people find out that their family members are dying, very sick with COVID, the first thing they ask is how? Who gave it to him or her, right? And unfortunately, usually it's the family members who did that, especially for elderlies because they don't go out much. So usually it's the family members, like a young person, bring home. And sometimes it's caretakers. So I imagine that experience must be very heartbreaking, right? To think about, yes, it is the family members who does it. So here's a short monologue from Alex about that. So originally I had an actor from Chile will actually help us read this thing, but he came down with COVID, so he cannot participate today. So I will just read this thing for you now. So just imagine I'm 18 and I'm a college student. And this thing is called Wasn't Me. As a little kid, brother always beat me by saying, wasn't me. Wasn't me that ate the cookies, cut baby's hair, broke the screen door. Wasn't me that took mom's money, punched Jimmy in the eye, or took dad's car for a joyride. Wasn't me. It wasn't me. I swear to God, it wasn't me. I swear to God, it wasn't me. I wasn't even sick. What's that word? Asymptomatic? I mean, anyone could be asymptomatic, right? She lived alone. It was the gardener, the delivery guy, or the mailman. There must be a way to find out, right? I'll do whatever. Spitting into a petri dish, pee in a paper cup, or take my blood. Okay, we can do that. I'm sure doctors can do something to find out if I'm guilty. Please, I just need to know, am I guilty? A first degree, second degree, involuntary, am I gonna go to jail? Of course it wasn't intentional, it wasn't premeditated, it was not malicious. Of course not. I loved her. She literally raised me. She didn't deserve this. It must have been me. So that was a short monologue to kind of capture this kind of sentiment. So in spring and summer 2021, when I started this project, I was mainly doing research on my own and writing little things like this one I just showed you. In fall 2021, I started meeting with a few drama students regularly and to brainstorm the idea of the final moments. And we try to cover aspects of medicine, ritual, art, education, gender, race, environment. The students who have been meeting with me are from Taiwan, from China, Chile, Iran, and these are actors, playwrights, directors, sound designer, puppeteers. So we always have very exciting conversations. And every time we have a meeting, I always feel like, wow, there's a journal article here just from all your ideas. So maybe we will actually co-write something after this project. So because we will also, the project will also involve a lot of movements. So we'll need a choreographer to help us with the movements and dance and a lot of projection. So we really need to be in the physical space to try it out. So far we have been talking online, but we really hope we can get into the physical space soon and try it out. So, okay, so I'm just gonna show you the creative team. So I just want to show you that these are the people in the creative team so far. So I will introduce the students. So some of them are going to present something. So I will just first introduce Chihan Wu. And Chihan, can you say, so I want to say some, so introduce yourself and talk about what kind of impact COVID has had on you and how do you transform that into sort of creative energy and what's your contribution to this project?
Hi, my name is Chihan and I am currently in my 5th year of PhD in drama. And I do research on puppetry and I'm a huge fan of puppetry. And I also do a little bit of puppet performance. And I think like puppetry as a form of performance or a form of art has been one of the very few performance genre that is less impacted by the pandemic, as the characters in these shows are puppets. And so we don't have to worry about like social distancing or like stay 6 feet away or like have to collaborate or be in contact with others. So I think like puppetry's flexibility is something that has really been explored in theater during this pandemic, which is good, but also it is depressing that we cannot have like real human context in theater during this period of time. And that is something I really want to explore. Like, it's not about like substituting or replacing human actors with puppets, but how puppets can take as the lead role in theater during this period of time. And like other team member, Tinding, I'm also in charge of the puppetry part of this piece, Final Moments, and it is my pleasure to be a part of this project. So Tinding and I, we try to physicalize and visualize the stories, the words, and also the sentiments, the pain, and all those feelings, emotions by using masks and all the PPEs or other protective gears to make puppets in this show, for this show. And I think like, especially for a project like this one, that everything, like Daphne said in the very beginning, that everything can be like very depressing. And we hope that puppets can potentially bring in some like lightness and some fun to it. Yeah, I'm glad to be here and glad to see you all today.
So why don't we, thank you. So why don't we go to Tianding, and so since we're talking about puppetry, do you have something to add?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Tianding. I'm a first year student. So I came here during COVID. And so personally, what happened to me, how COVID impacted me is like, I came from China. I went back from China right before the outbreak of the New York, in New York, to almost 3 years ago. So I haven't got a chance to go back to my home to visit my family or anyone for almost 3 years. And another thing is like, I was a theater student in my MA before coming here, and also a theater maker in New York. And most of my friends and other classmates in theater department has gone back to China because of COVID, and they will never really have a chance to come back to continue their career. So that's like a very sad part of it, because theater is one of the most ruined field by COVID. It's always the first thing to shut down, always the last thing to go back together to see a show. Yeah, and but artistically, actually, I think I got more chances to present myself and present my community, like BIPOC community, online because of COVID, which is a silver lining in a disaster, a catastrophe. Yeah, so I did some puppetry work, online performances during COVID, using whatever I can have in my home. So I used masks and also like the gloves, the medical gloves, and everything I can reach out in my home. Yeah, so but it works. So we can still continue to create things even though we cannot see each other, which is good. And also we have this online platform, which is very good, especially for the underrepresented community, who now can have a voice and to be seen on this online platform. So I will write the script about this into our final moment, the full script, and hopefully we can also find out more to work on the puppetry part. Thank you. And Daphne, do you want to show the audio, the music?
Yeah, so I'm going to do the music. So far we have written some music. It's not complete yet. So one idea about this is the environmental impact, because in the beginning of COVID, everyone is talking about the environment has become so much better because people stay home and they don't drive. You can actually see clear sky in China, for instance. But then suddenly, then we realized that we discard so much waste. We have a lot of takeout containers, right? We have a lot of PPEs, masks, and all these things. And then the impact is actually very, very serious. So one idea we have is to construct a puppet out of PPE. It's a life-size puppet. So the puppet will dance to a song. And maybe with another dancer, but it's a song about plastic monstrosity. So I'm going to show you the lyrics and I'm going to play the music. So you kind of imagine these two things together, but the music is not complete. It still needs like prelude and interlude and repeats. And so, but just give you a sense. And so the music is, this is just the program, the music program that's playing the music. The music is written, but right now it's just the sound is from the program. So it's not actual recording from piano or singing. So what you hear is just from the program. Yeah. Screen. So here's the lyrics and here's the music. I forgot to see if I was sharing the sound. Was the sound okay? Okay. All right. So yeah, so that was our presentation. So so we have Vero Diaz Muniz and so Vero.
Hi everyone, my name is Vero. I'm a theater director and playwright from Chile. And my background is more in movement research and documentary theater, but I've been working a lot in sound design in the Final Moments project. My experience with the pandemic was that it helped me to realize how important it's to be together in the same space. I think we took for many years for granted the idea of sharing a space, and then that becomes almost impossible at the very beginning of the pandemic. So I was very interested in that. And I was also interested in like, how can we share a similar experience if we are not in the same space? So that's why I started working with a lot of sound design in this piece, because even though our experience with listening is different, we can share a similar feeling or like a similar atmosphere, a sound atmosphere with sounds. So that's like what I've been working into this piece. And I'm going to share something. It's the very beginning of the play. It's a dream or a nightmare, I would say, that Clara is having. As Daphne mentioned, she's been working in the front line, so she's very overwhelmed with all the COVID news. And then after I show the clip, I'm gonna briefly talk about it. So I'm gonna share my sound. Okay. And if possible, if you have earbuds or whatever you can put in your ears is going to be better. Like the sound quality is way better. If you don't, it's totally fine. It's going to be fine. Okay.
COVID-19 ကာကွယ်ဆေး2ကြိမ်ထိုးပြီးဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မို့ကျွန်မအနေနဲ့ယခုဆိုရင်
First US case has been detected.
وجود دموکراتیه میگم تغییر رو غنی نمیشناسه مسئول و غیر مسئول نمیشناسه ممکنه تعدادی رو خب مبتلا کنه.
Coronavirus-Pandemie war und ist eine politische, soziale, ökonomische Jahrhundertaufgabe.
उनको भी डर है कभी हमारे परिवार में एक आदमी को कोरोना हो और हम जो है हॉस्पिटल जाएं और हमारे अंदर जो है कोरोना पॉजिटिव हो.
세계적으로 신형 코로나 비루스 감염증 피해가 계속 확산되고 있는 속에
There's confirmation the coronavirus has reached Australia.
Porque é muito doloroso uma mãe enterrando um filho de 14 anos, uma mãe enterrando um filho de 18, como eu fui fazer hoje. É muito difícil.
Okay, so she's sleeping and then she wakes up after this nightmare. And yeah, something that I've been working in for this sound atmosphere is that I've been mostly working with sound clips and interviews and videos that I scavenged from the internet, and then I put them together with some synthesizers and other sound effects like reverb. So we have like this echoey kind of sensation that help us to understand that we are not listening in this exact moment, but it's like something that is coming from a place that it's more like dreamlike. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So we have Talin Abadian, who cannot be here with us today. She's from Iran. She's interested in environment and performance. She's also very interested in rituals. So she's contributing to some writing about rituals, and she's a playwright herself as well. We also have Eva Chenyuan Huang. Eva, do you want to say something?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eva, or Chongyuan Huang. I'm a third-year PhD student in the drama department. And my kind of takeaway from the COVID pandemic is how much the narratives from authorities have been causing a lot of confusion and distrust. And so we start to shift attention from these narratives that are passed down from top down to the voices that have long been marginalized and the stories that haven't been given the proper tools or conduit to express. So I think this project is a great site of going into that direction of a moment for us to turn to those voices and stories. And I've also been feeling strongly about how much the world is connected. Apparently, we are in the same storm, as the popular saying goes, but not necessarily the same boat. And the weak links in this seemingly perfect and mature system are more exposed than ever, and they're urging us to do something about them now. So my contribution to this project has been some research, and I've also been writing segments for the performance. I'm very glad to see so many people interested in this project and showing up here. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. I'll pass it back to Daphne.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So that's kind of our presentation. So, we know COVID taught us many things. People often talk about self-care, compassion, and gotta cherish the present moment, the time with our loved ones. These are the things we learned. And many doctors I interviewed just told me that they believe the COVID calamity really brought out the best of humanity. Even though when they are so devastated in their workspace, they believe that. When they are so frustrated and exhausted, they still believe that. So some of our challenges, first of all, we have too many stories. There are so many good stories. We have to find a way to somehow put them together and choose and put them together. And then another challenge is how do we present something positive, beautiful, and in this kind of devastating situation. How do we find humor? How do we find light in this kind of very dark moment? How do we address healing? Right now, we haven't had too much time to think about that because right now it is still present progressive tense, right? We're in the middle of it. So we're also thinking about the new normal. So these are many things that we are thinking about, and these are the challenges as we continue to face as we finish this project. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to do this. I guess we can take some questions or comments.
Yes, thank you, Professor Lei, and to the student participants for your presentation. We have about 20 minutes, so we can open it up for people who'd like to offer a question or a comment. You can either unmute yourself or you may use the chat to pose your question or comment. So the floor is open.
I should first say that the planned performance is on March 31st, 7 o'clock in Winifred Smith Hall. If everything can still go on stage, right now we don't know, but that's the plan.
Let us hope. See it. So again, you go ahead and use the chat or unmute yourself to ask your question or to raise a comment. Very quickly, Daphne, I can't remember, when did you interview these physicians?
I think my earliest interview was February last year.
Of 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, 2021. So they started working, some of them, I think all of them interviewed, decided that they were out of med school. They started working in December or even earlier. So they really saw the beginning of it. And then I think I interviewed them in February, March, and April, and then they got vaccinated. But they really went through the period that they had to check out 1 mask per day per person, like that.
I'd be really curious if you were to interview them, say like now, like a year later, now that Omicron has arrived, like what they might say now. I mean, I was thinking, listening to the soundscape that Vero was posing, like what would be a soundscape of 2022 if you were to do that kind of montage now? I mean, this pandemic has been so long. Like what stories, what sounds might be different now or the same?
Yeah, there's a section we are writing. It's about the exhaustion of our body, of our mind, of everything. But then recently, the new term compassion fatigue, has come up. So we're rounding out the patients to be compassionate. So I actually recently talked to one of the doctors, just asking her any updates. She mentioned that kind of, because from the medical point of view, so many things could have been prevented. And so while they are saving all their lives, they are also feeling very angry and frustrated. And why didn't you get vaccine, right? So I think right now it's really much more exhausted and just tired of this thing. Even the doctors are feeling that way. Yeah.
I see K2's hand, but there are a couple of people who've written in the chat, and the reason why I'm reading the chat is because for the recording, because the chat is not visible in the recording. So Nina writes, what a moving and important project. Thank you, Daphne, and everyone who contributed. Emily writes, I thought the audio of Clara's nightmare was very well done. It depicted the chaos and overwhelming anxiety of the situation very well. Meredith writes, hi, med student from Ohio, interested in medical humanities, started school July 2020. Really appreciate hearing about the experiences of graduate students in other fields during the pandemic. A lot resonated with me. Thank you for your important work. Okay, K2, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daphne and everybody else who participated. It's definitely a very moving project. You know, rather than the final moments, it seems like what we heard was more about hope and resilience in terms of like surviving. So that sort of came through to me quite strongly. And I would really love to see the puppets that you guys created, but maybe I have to wait till the end of March to see that. But I think the contributions of all of the students and Daphne, our own kind of thought process about this is really very moving. I think the frustration, because even over these 2 and plus some years of the pandemic, right? So many medical staff have resigned. So many nurses have talked about feeling burnt out and they have left the profession. So there's a shortage of staff. And I mean, we talk about compassion and at the same time, the anger against the unvaccinated is also very palpable, I think, in society now. So I don't know if there's a way that you would also bring that in. I mean, doctors are trained to treat whoever shows up, you know, and that's what they have been trained to do. But it seems to me that right now it's such a crisis. Like if someone's in a car accident and ends up in the emergency room, they may not get a bed because of so many unvaccinated people, you know, who may be crowding the hospitals. But, you know, I'm not trying to judge. I'm saying that that's really an important aspect of what, at least in society, we are seeing. And I don't know if there's a way you might want to include that. Thank you so much for the project.
Yeah, I plan to do a little bit of it in the part about the exhaustion. I want to express everyone is exhausted, right? Students, teachers, doctors, and everyone is exhausted. And then our bodies are hurting and everything, our heads are hurting and I cannot think anymore. So I wanna put that into the doctor's mouth, just, you know, the frustration she's feeling. And then also to your other points about the resilience instead of really the final moment, right? The death and dying. And I think, you know, this is actually early on, I was talking to Eva, one of the students, and she gave me this idea to think about the final moments. They don't have to be actually the final moments when we think about dying, right? It could be the final moments, like what we remember with that person, the last great memory of that person, right? The last time I do something great. It could be a good final moment, right? It doesn't have to always to be the sad final moments. So part of that, I wanna have that to think about what I remember, because very often people talk about, I saw him walking to the hospital and he never comes out, right? So I drop him off. You know, that was a final moment, and that's what I remember. Last time we had Zoom, and then he passed away, because one of the feelings is everything just happening so fast. There's no time to say goodbye. It's really just no time to say goodbye. No time to say goodbye. So can we think about every moment could be final, and to really cherish that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great insight from Eva. I really like that idea a whole lot. Thank you.
Couple more comments in the chat. Nina writes, guilt is such an important and burdening emotion in addition to suffering loss. Thank you for bringing that to light. And Chloe writes, love this work. I think that Daphne's emphasis on the significance of music definitely showed through with the song that you played for us. The composition of it definitely expressed intense emotions and environmental concerns in an alternative way. And Caitlin writes, thank you so much for sharing the project. I love how the project ties together a variety of themes, emotions, realities in so many different mediums. Excited to see how the finished project turns out.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Nina?
Hi, thank you so much for this. I think what's so unusual about COVID is just the complexity of emotions that have come up for people. There is just so much, as Ketu said also. I mean, we're angry at those who are not vaccinated. Those who are not vaccinated are angry with us, people who need a hospital bed and can't get one because somebody who decided not to be vaccinated is taking up a space. I mean, it is so complex. People we love who feel one way, very different from how we feel about it. I mean, friendships have been broken over this, and there's loss of friendship. There's just, the complexity is just so vast. That's what strikes me so much. And it's not just simple loss anymore. The loss has so many layers. But I think you're doing a wonderful job of bringing this dimension to our experience. So thank you, and thank you everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, this is work in progress, and I don't know if it's gonna be, if COVID keeps going, and this will be a continuous work in progress, because we'll be learning new things and we have new stories, new experience. Yeah.
We have some more comments in the chats. Karina writes, I wasn't really sure what to expect when I registered for this, but it was very insightful. I never thought at all about the effects on certain artists and art majors because I was thinking about the ways that it has impacted my life day to day. Thank you for all the work put into this, and of course in your daily lives. Sabrina writes, thank you for this. I think this is an interesting way of bringing together drama, music, and other arts into such an emotionally difficult and stressful time. I'm also looking forward to getting to see the final project with the composition and everything.
Thank you. Yeah, so for artists, yeah, of course, we know from the closure of Broadway and closure of our season and all that, it's difficult, especially for, I think you can imagine maybe music, you can be just you and the instrument, but then with drama and dance, you cannot do that. You definitely need to be with people. And with drama, they need to wear costume. The costume has to be made, it has to be fitted. And so it's just, it has so much impact. But one thing I do notice, as Tandy also mentioned, that the online platform is just such a great way to not just to connect people, but it provides so many extra stages for people, especially underrepresented people, people of color, people who usually do not have a chance to be on stage. And now they could have the whole screen as the stage. They can create all these things. So this is something that's a great thing that came out of COVID. Of course, it doesn't need COVID for us to imagine that, right? But then we somehow couldn't imagine that. We always have this very tight, very high threshold for audition, for everything, right? But now somehow with COVID, people feel more compassionate, and you are willing to watch something, maybe even though this is not from somebody famous, you're willing to open your heart to do that. And I really hope this will not go away. This is really something I hope it won't go away, and we can still keep this kind of compassionate mind to think about every artist deserves a space space. Every person deserves a space. Yeah.
We have some more comments in the chat. Nee writes, thank you so much for this beautiful project. I love the emotions and messages tied into it, as well as the use of all different art forms. I'm looking forward to seeing the final project and how these emotions and messages can be translated to others. Maria writes, do you think that theater has a special power to heal? Is there a way that this piece could be especially healing considering its structure and process?
Yes, theater is a space to heal. But one thing we also worried when we were talking with students was how this piece might traumatize students too, the audience too, because of whatever thing we're bringing up, because people have had, traumatic experience with COVID too. So yeah, we do hope to present some kind of message about healing, about going forward.
That leads to a question. Have you all decided, or do you all have an agreement on what healing means? I'm genuinely curious, like for you, what does that mean?
I think one thing certainly is not what we think about. The traditional way to think about healing is to get back to what you used to have. It will be a new stage. Just like people often say, okay, well, can we just go back to normal? It's not going back to normal. It's to accepting the new normal, not to mourn for the old normal, but to be okay with a new normal. And I think that's part of the healing. Yeah, Kato.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that healing is, as it's been kind of conceptualized, is different from curing, like a medical cure. So that if you're fixated on that, then it's kind of limited in terms of what is possible. But the healing can be a much wider concept if you're thinking of healing, not just the body, but the spirit, the people around, the person who might be suffering, and, going into different kinds of modalities of whether it's music or whether it is a ritual or some kind of spiritual practice, that can feel healing to particular individuals. So I think with medical humanities, that's also a very big emphasis in terms of how works are kind of realized. And I'm sure with the artists that are working with you, Daphne, that's very much part of it, Like if you can think of healing through puppetry, as Chihan said, that it's not only very glum and kind of depressing, but it can be something a little lighthearted, or other kinds of things with sound, or, the stories that Eva is talking about, even Tallinn. So all of them, yeah. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Just before I forget, thank you very much for Medical Humanities for supporting this. I also want to thank 21C from School of Arts. They are also the co-sponsor for this project.
Well, why don't we once again give Professor Lei and her students a round of applause, thank them for their presentation, for the work that they're doing, wish them best wishes for the continued project, for its completion. Let's hope that we can see the final project in March, perhaps in person. And thank you all for coming to this event. And I look forward to seeing you at future Center for Medical Humanities events. Have a good evening, enjoy your weekend, take care of yourselves, and be kind to others.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.